The entire world, every single one of us was impacted in some way by what happened on this spot 10 years ago. But while most of us watched as the attacks unfolded on television, it was a different experience altogether for those who watched from windows or while standing in the streets. These are some of their stories.
I'm Airman First Class Charles Robertson, and I'm from Brooklyn, New York. The hustle and bustle is something you kind of grow to hate with all the traffic and stuff, but you get used to it. My school was very big. It was a Brooklyn Technical High School. We had about like 5,000 students at the time, and the high school was big. It was 9 floors. I was in my first class of the day. It was technical drawing, and I looked outside, and it was like the clearest blue sky, and against that it was like a long trail of black smoke, and I was just wondering, why that the second explosion happened when the second plane hit, and you saw a huge fireball, and a little bit later, you heard the explosion, and that caught everybody's attention. And at that point, we had no idea what was going on. In my mind, the last thing was a terrorist attack. That was like the furthest thing from my mind. After a while, we couldn't switch classes just because they wanted to lock down everything in the school. And they pretty much kept us there until our parents came to get us. Between classes, we just watched the buildings burn, honestly. Like you could see a huge hole in one of them and little embers and everything. And if you look closely enough, you can see people hanging out the windows and things like that. And it was pretty rough. It was a crazy day. In that split second, so many people just like lost their lives. And that's, somebody's wife, husband, brother, sister. So that was rough. I'm definitely more aware of, how fragile life is, how fast things can change. And it puts things in perspective for you. I wanted to do something that actually made a difference. And I started speaking to a recruiter. And it just rolled on from there. Honestly, it just kind of happened on its own. It's a sense of duty, honestly. I wanted to make a difference. I definitely don't want to see something like that happen again. And if I can contribute to preventing that, then it's definitely worth it. Worth the sacrifice of the lifestyle change.
I'm Air Force Captain Edmund Spivak, an EOD commander at Holloman Air Force Base, and I was in New York City on 9/11 when the towers were struck. As I started to walk down, it was the eeriest feeling of my life. No sounds whatsoever. After being in New York City my whole life, hustle and bustle, horns honking, everyone screaming, yelling, traffic everywhere, absolutely nothing, dead silence. I continued to walk down all the way until I got to ground zero, basically knocked off my feet when I saw the scene down there. I immediately walked up to try to find out what I could start doing to help out, and somebody just handed me a bucket. First thing I started doing, I was working on the bucket brigade, just taking the debris that was being handed to me and then dumping it into a dump truck, and then gradually through time, I ended up working my way further up into the debris pile. The day 2 there, I made it further into the pile, and they were really looking for people who could cut steel away. Since I knew how to use a cutting torch and do welding, I took one of the oxyacetylene and climbed into the pile and started cutting the steel away. Did that for about 2 days, sleeping hour, maybe 2 hours in between shifts. After a week of not showering, I was very frustrated. I was very scared. I had seen some horrific things because in the middle of picking up all of the debris, there were body parts, there were dead people. And I decided I never wanted my kids or future generations to have to see some of the things I saw going down there. I knew a lot of people who worked there. I lost a lot of friends and parents of friends. It was a very hard thing for me to deal with for a while, and that's even just being down there. That's when I decided I was going to go into the military. That's where I really felt I would be able to give the most back and do the most good. I still feel the same way that I do from back then. We have an important job to do. I feel that too many people forget what happened. Too many people put it in the past. They remember it once a year when September 11th comes around. but it's an ongoing threat. It's something that's happening all the time, and I feel it's my job to get the word out and to do everything I can for the rest of my life to try to prevent things like this from happening in the future.
The Air Force has not forgotten the sacrifice and heroism displayed by so many on 9/11, from people both in and out of uniform. For one man and his best friend, the painful memories of that day still linger. Michelle Michael reports.
Come on, come on, come on. You like that?
There is only one smartest dog,
Ready? Ready?
and every man
Good boy.
has him.
Smartest dog on the block.
When Terry Trepanier met Woody,
He's 12 years old and he's still going as fast as he did when he was a pup.
it didn't take long before the old man's best friend saying
I mean,
was said.
he's been my best bud.
Life for this team hasn't always been about the backyard.
Woody.
Together, they've literally seen war.
The enormity of it, when you walked out there and saw 16 acres of rubble and knew that there were over 3,000 people buried in that rubble.
Terry and Woody deployed to New York City on 9/11 as part of Ohio's Task Force 1 emergency disaster team. The K-9 team, trained in every way for the job, was unprepared in every way for what they'd find.
I looked down and there was a hand. It was just a hand. And it had been blown out from one of the buildings. And I know it was a woman's hand because it was very well manicured. You know, those things, you know, they stick with you for a while.
And Woody, trained to find people, found people were looking for him.
This group of New York firefighters came over. And the one guy bent down and we started talking and he said, you know, I got a golden at home. And he says, I sure miss them. And he said, I lost all my guys. And he had a small American flag in his helmet. And he took that flag out of his helmet and put it in Woody's collar and walked away.
This year marks a decade since the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Yet 10 years is yesterday when Terry talks about a little girl he met.
She had on a like a flowered dress, and she had big eyes. She came up to me and she looked at me, and she said, "Thank you for trying to find my daddy." I couldn't say anything. It still bothers me.
Together, Terry and Woody spent 10 days on that pile. This year, the U.S. Air Force says thank you at Freedom's Call Tattoo on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Terry and Woody, we thank you.
On a stage in front of thousands, they stand proud. A man who never wanted to be a firefighter retired as one. No more training, except the house kind.
He's not a house dog, as you can see. He's like a bull in a china closet.
Woody is the only surviving K-9 from the 9/11 task force team. And if he's really the smartest search dog, he has to know that Terry
I'm going to miss him when he's gone, I'll tell you.
is his greatest find.
I'm really going to miss that guy.
Michelle Michael,
Hey.
Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
While it doesn't look like much now, this hallowed ground is well on its way to being made whole again, with the construction of what will one day be America's tallest building. As you can see, a lot has changed at Ground Zero since that unforgettable day 10 years ago, and a new and vibrant structure will soon populate the space that the World Trade Center once occupied. May we never forget. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Today's Air Force. I'm Staff Sergeant Nicholas Kurtz.